For the past 10 years, if you were looking to buy the most affordable Chevrolet SUV in America, you were looking at a Chevy Trax. This nameplate first came to the States back in 2014, and ever since its arrival, this car has essentially been the butt of rental car jokes for its cartoonish design and cheap overall feel. Now, thankfully, Chevy gave this Trax a much-needed redesign back in 2024, moving it to its second generation and essentially turning the ugly duckling into a swan with an all-new styling language, a new platform, a new turbocharged 1.2-liter engine under the hood, and just a much more premium feel. So as you can see, this week we are testing out the latest 2025 Chevrolet Trax in the fully loaded 2RS trim. And the big question I want to answer, for those of you who are looking for an affordable small SUV that doesn't look or feel cheap, how does the latest version of the Chevy Trax stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the much improved exterior styling of the new Trax, let me first go ahead and pop the hood and remind you guys what's powering this thing. Now, here in America, Chevy actually keeps things pretty simple. You only get one powertrain choice and one drivetrain combination. It's a 1.2-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder with front-wheel drive. Now, as you can see underneath the hood, it's actually a tidy underhood appearance with a decent sized engine cover. You're gonna find, again, a 3-cylinder engine. So Chevy actually lopped off one cylinder compared to the previous generation, which had a 1.4-liter turbocharged 4. In this application, this 1.2-liter 3-cylinder turbo double overhead cam engine makes 137 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. This is about the same horsepower as the old 1.4-liter turbo 4, but this has roughly 15 more foot-pounds of torque. This is the same powertrain that it shares with the Buick Envista. And like I said earlier, Chevy only offers the Trax with front-wheel drive. If you want all-wheel drive, they'll happily sell you a Trailblazer for an extra $3,000, depending, of course, on your trim and equipment levels. It all goes out through a 6-speed automatic transmission, so it's a conventional automatic, no CVT here, which is definitely a good thing when you have a small displacement engine like this. Now, fuel economy is rated at 28 in the city and 32 on the highway. That's on regular gas. This has about a 13-gallon fuel tank. The EPA says you'll go around 390-ish miles of range on a full tank. Now, Chevy doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. We got just over 9 seconds. In the last Trax that we tested almost 2 years ago, top speed for this vehicle should be around 115 miles an hour. This vehicle is not recommended to tow. It is the smallest and most affordable SUV in the Chevy portfolio. However, it is a lightweight vehicle, and the curb weight comes in at just under 3,100 pounds, so it's a few hundred pounds lighter versus a lot of its all-wheel drive competitors. Now, closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the beautiful new exterior styling. Well, beautiful is always a subjective term here. Compared to the previous generation, this is definitely a big improvement. The vehicle itself is around 3 inches wider than the previous generation. It's a little bit taller. It's significantly longer as well. And as you can see, my particular test car is painted in this color called crimson red, metallic. It definitely has some nice metallic fleck to it. There are 2 new exterior colors. There's here a blue, and there's also, I believe, like a grayish color. As you can see, the design certainly looks a lot more premium and upscale. It's got the traditional Chevy bow tie emblem, which is blacked out on the RS trim. There's an RS badge here. The grille itself is wider, larger. It has actual air intake openings, and the headlights, you can see all Traxes come with LED headlights. So you have an LED daytime running light, which is divorced from the actual headlight, which is down here. You can see you have an LED low and high beam, and then an incandescent turn signal. I didn't expect it to be a full LED because, remember, this is the most affordable vehicle in the Chevy portfolio, but I do appreciate the front bumper, which is a little bit more aggressive with the gloss black. No parking sensors or 360 camera. Remember, this is a cheap vehicle, but you don't really need it because it's not that large on the outside. Now, moving around to the rest of the profile, you can see this is a conventional subcompact SUV by its dimensions, although Chevy gave this thing a massive growth spur, but it's still relatively small. 106.3-inch long wheelbase with a 179-inch overall length. Chevy actually enlarged this thing by about 10 inches compared to the previous generation, which again gives it a much more upscale look and feel. Overall length of this vehicle is around 4 inches longer versus like a Subaru Crosstrek. The Buick Envista is around 3 inches longer than this vehicle still, which I actually think the Buick is slightly better looking with its coupe-like profile, but this is also still pretty attractive. The 2RS trim that I'm showing you here is the only trim that comes with a big 19-inch wheel. That's right, a 19-inch wheel on a subcompact Chevy Trax, and it's riding on a pretty fat 245 by 45 R19 Continental Pro Contact all-season tire. You have all-wheel disc brakes, of course, 11 inches in the front, 10.5 inches in the rear, 7.3 inches of ground clearance with an independent front suspension, but a semi-independent twist beam at the back. And as you can see with the crossover, you get the cladding along the side, although it's a very tasteful amount of cladding, so it's not overwhelming. The RS trim includes black mirrors, but no integrated turn signals or power folding mirrors. Obviously, you do get blind spot monitoring. My test car also has a sunroof, part of a sunroof package for $900 that includes a wireless charger. I also like the low profile aerodynamic black roof rails. And then moving back, looking at the rest of the profile, you can see this just looks like a much more expensive vehicle, and it really does have a more premium ambiance to it. It actually looks better to me versus the Trailblazer, which is supposed to be one class above this car, and it's also bigger than the Trailblazer by about 4 inches. Now moving over to the rear, some would argue that the rear design isn't quite as successful as the front. I think that is definitely true in my eyes. The rear just doesn't look as nice. I think the Invista looks better from the rear. The taillights, you can see, almost remind me of like the previous generation, maybe Nissan Kicks. They are an all incandescent design for the taillight. It's got the black Chevy bow tie logo and then the RS badge over there along with the blacked out Trax badge. From this angle here, it just kind of looks a little dopey. I almost wish that the taillights extended further into the actual trunk lid. The rear bumper, you can see, is a little bit more aggressive on the RS trim with some fake vents. No visible exhaust tips as I expected it not to have. You do have a spoiler back here along with your rear wiper that sits in the middle of the glass. If I open up the trunk of this vehicle, you can see no power liftgate. You don't typically find that in this class. I think the only vehicle that offers it, one of the few, is the Toyota Corolla Cross. And then in terms of the cargo capacity, you get around 25 cubic feet of storage space, which expands to around 54 cubic feet excuse me, with those seats folded, which is definitely a pretty decent amount. You have some storage to the side there. You have some underfloor storage with a temporary spare. And overall, this vehicle has around 12 cubic feet more versus its sister car, the Buick Envista, which has a more sloping rear end. So moving on to the interior of this 2025 Chevrolet Trax in the 2 RS trim. Before we get inside, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is Chevy's latest Intelligent Access key fob. It's a nice looking key, a nice size key with your usual buttons here for unlock, lock. You have remote start as well, along with a panic feature. Obviously no powered tailgate, so there's no button here to open up the tailgate, but it is a pretty nice size key fob as well. Now, as I approach the door handle, you can see there's a little chrome button on this door handle. If I push that, that locks the door. To unlock the door, there's no sensor on the back. You have to touch the door handle again. That will unlock the door when you push that button. This vehicle does not offer an auto walkaway lock or unlock feature. Now, if you guys go for the 2 RS trim or the RS trim, I hope you like a black interior because this is the only color combination you can get, which does pair nicely with the crimson red and the red accents. It just matches very nicely, although I kind of wish Chevy would offer like a light gray interior as well, or a brown interior with this color combination. You can see the RS trim comes with their Evo Tex, which is a synthetic leather material. I love the contrast stitching and piping, the RS embossed into the actual seat backs. The seats themselves aren't any more aggressively bolstered, but they do come with a 3-level heat function and a heated steering wheel in this trim, which is nice. My test car has a 6-way manual driver's seat. However, if you purchase a model that's built after February 2025, Chevy actually threw in an 8-way power driver's seat with 2-way power lumbar. So that's something that is going to slightly increase the price of the new model by about $500 from what I saw on the build site, but it's definitely a nice feature to have. To have a power driver's seat with lumbar is definitely a nice feature. My early model, as you can see, doesn't have it. Looking at the door panels, you can see it is a cheap car, so it does have some cheaper materials. Hard touch plastic with a decent graining feel at least. Chrome door handle, as you can see, this isn't even padded, which is a little disappointing, but you do have some of that Evo Tex here with the contrast red. I would have liked it if Chevy would have extended that to here where I rest my elbows. The window controls are 1 touch down for all 4, but not 1 touch up, so just 1 touch down. You do have some piano black trim here with some like a textured feel to it, and then you have a 6-speaker Chevy branded audio system, which sounds okay. It's nothing super fancy. You can't get like a Bose premium sound system in this car, and I wasn't expecting to find it at this price point, but it certainly makes a nice first impression. Now, as I get inside, you can see with 7.3 inches of ground clearance, it has a nice easy step-in height. Feels a little bit lower than a Crosstrek though. If I shut the door, the door doesn't have the most solid sounding thunk. It sounds a little cheap and tinny, but again, that's just my perception. Remember, this is, again, a $20,000 car at the base end. Now, starting the vehicle up, you can see start-stop button is located here behind the steering wheel. It's kind of blocked by the steering column and the wiper stalk, but Pushing the button, you can see it has a traditional starter noise because this is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid. I don't love the chime, it's very loud, but when you guys go for the LT and trims and up, you'll basically get the more improved infotainment cluster. So you have an 8-inch display here for the instrument panel, and then you have an 11-inch center display here. If you guys don't go for the LT trim, you'll have a 3.5-inch cluster here with some analog dials, and then you'll have an 8-inch center display. All of them do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but I have to say that the software behind this is very much a dumbed down version of what you find in the bigger, more expensive GM vehicles. No voice commands, no Google built in, no embedded GPS, but you at least have the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto that is wireless. But as you can see, it's a little bit slow. As I start navigating through the settings here, it just takes a second for it to populate. It's kind of annoying how slow it is. At least, again, the phone does offer that. It has a trip computer built in there. You can kind of go into different gauges here as well if you want to pull up your coolant and temperature. And then this gauge display does allow you to adjust it. You can see there is a tack here, but to adjust it, you have to push and hold this, and it literally takes a second for it to populate. As I start to go through the gauge display, you can see it's just really slow. And this is where GM, again, saved a little bit of money by going with a dumbed down version of the software. I also don't love the graphics there. It doesn't look very nice. My favorite's probably gauge 1 that shows a tachometer. So kind of, keep that in mind. There is a little bit of adjustability, but you are going to be reminded that they had to cut some corners, elsewhere. Now, looking at the steering wheel, I do like the steering wheel on this trim. Flat bottom with the piano black plastic. It also has a really nice feeling leather that's perforated with contrast stitching. The wheel itself is also heated. Wasn't expecting to find that here. You do also have a power or manual tilt telescoping wheel, which offers a good amount of adjustability to get a comfortable driving position. No paddles behind the wheel, which would have been nice. You do have steering wheel audio controls behind the wheel. The horn sounds really pathetic and puny, which reminds you it's a cheap car, but hey, there are some sacrifices you have to make. This is hard touch plastic over the gauge pod. This upper portion is all hard touch plastic, but I actually really like the texture that you get here, which feels kind of nice. You have some chrome trim, some piano black trim. The fit and finish, I do think that I do see a little bit of fitment issues here and there, but at least I didn't hear a single squeak and rattle in this interior during my week worth of testing. Hard touch plastic over here. Again, I like the way the vents look with the red, the piano black, although that's going to show fingerprints and smudges pretty easily. You have single zone climate control, which this trim includes. Other trims will just have a manual single zone. Again, your 3-level heated seats are here. Unexpected to find that, which is definitely nice. Down here, you do have a wireless phone charging pad that's included with the sunroof. This controls the 6-speed auto. Your manual control is actually here on the shifter. Put the vehicle into reverse. You can see there's your backup camera, which does include trajectory, but no parking sensors, no cross-traffic braking. Again, those are features reserved for more expensive cars. The graphic and resolution there is okay. It's nothing super fancy. Electronic parking brake, more of that aluminum look chrome trim here. You have lane keep assist here along with your auto start stop defeat. No drive mode selectors in this car. It just basically has a single mode. You put it in drive, or there's also a low mode if you want to control it via manual control. A little bit more storage here. This is not really padded for center console, but it's pretty big actually. It fits 2 of my GoPros in there quite nicely. The seats, like I said earlier, not much in terms of aggressive bolstering, but the padding is decent, and the seats also look nice. I just want Chevy to offer a different color, which would have been great. You can see the glove box is damped. It's not lined with felt, but it is a big glove box. Nice additional storage. No auto-dimming rearview mirror, just a traditional manual mirror, of course, as I expected. A woven material for the headliner. The sunroof, you can see, opens up in the traditional way. It also will tilt. It has a manual retractable shade, and you have basically non-LED lighting in here, which again doesn't really surprise me, but at least you get OnStar. So overall, as you can see, the interior certainly isn't luxurious. Material qualities does feel cheap, but at least the build quality is average to decent. Not a single squeak and rattle in this interior. Comfortable seats, good visibility as well. So overall, it's an unexpected surprise considering the price point. But let's go and hop into the back seat, because this is where Chevy also did a pretty good job with the space back here. First of all, the door, it opens a pretty decent amount. Material quality back here, it's all hard touch plastic, no leather on this portion like it in the front area. Hard touch plastic here, hard touch plastic here. Windows, again, just 1 touch down, not 1 touch up. A little bit of storage here. You can see the seats. They do look pretty decent. You do have the ability to fold them flat, and it creates almost a flat floor, which is nice. Unfortunately, the seats themselves, they don't offer the ability to recline or move them forward, so they're just kind of fixed into position. But once you get back here, you can see the legroom space is actually quite generous. Now, As I shut the door, this is my driving position. I have 38.7 inches of legroom according to Chevy, which is a pretty good amount. That's actually class leading, similar to the Buick Envista, obviously. The seats themselves aren't very thick, so you have tons of foot space, tons of knee space. I can get back here, cross my legs pretty easily. I also love how there's a flat floor because there's no drive shaft tunnel for all-wheel drive. A big storage area here. You do have 2 USB-C charging ports, which is nice, or an A and a C. No vents, however, I wasn't expecting to find that. You have one storage cubby here. I would have liked to see an armrest here. Sadly, there is no armrest, so if you're looking for cup holders, they're basically just that little storage area in the door, so not much in terms of cup holders back here. The headrests, they do at least fold down so they don't get in your way. In terms of the headroom space, you can see the sunroof does take up space, but I have a good maybe 2-3 inches of additional clearance, so it's not bad. So overall, the backseat area is certainly not great with features, but it is plentiful in terms of space. Storage is average. Would have been nice to have cup holders back here with an armrest, but overall, it's certainly not a bad place to spend time in this segment. So here we are back behind the wheel of the all-new second-generation Chevy Trax. It's kind of crazy that time continues to fly by so fast because it's been almost 2 years since I had a chance to drive this car in North Carolina for the first drive. Remember, this generation is all new for 2024, and for 2025, there aren't really any changes to the vehicle. The one that we're driving here is the 2RS trim, so this is the sportier looking version of the Trax, and it's also the most well-equipped model. There's technically the Active, which is the last one that I drove, which is kind of going with more of an off-road oriented look. But regardless of the trims, all of them come with a 1.2 liter gasoline turbocharged 3-cylinder engine making 137 horsepower, 162 pound-feet of torque. Front wheel drive is your only drivetrain configuration, hooked up to a 6-speed automatic transmission. So really nice conventional transmission, unconventional engine, but I do appreciate the noises that a 3-cylinder makes over a 4-cylinder. But the last car that I tested with this powertrain was the Envista. It hit 60 on this stretch of road in 8.8 seconds. So let's go ahead and see what the Trax can do. This vehicle does not have any kind of like sport mode or anything like that. Basically, you just floor it and it should just go. Shifts at around 5,800 RPM. All right, we got 0 to 60 in 8.9 seconds. So that's just a smidge slower than the Envista Avenir that I tested about a year ago with this same powertrain. Again, 8.9 is certainly nothing like to run home, right home about, but it's perfectly acceptable given the class of vehicle. Remember, this car would compete with something like the Hyundai Venue, which only offers 121 horsepower. The Nissan Kicks, the new version, which now offers all-wheel drive, would also compete with this car. It offers around 141 horsepower, but this vehicle has 162 foot-pounds of torque, so it does have more torque versus the Nissan thanks to its turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. I also appreciate the 6-speed auto in this car. As opposed to the CVT that's in the Kicks, this is just a more conventional driving experience. The transmission is also surprisingly smooth and responsive. Anytime I put my foot down, it's quick to just adjust the gear that it's in and just put the engine right into the meat of its power band. Because it's a turbocharged engine, it offers a nice meaty mid-range grunt. I also like the sound of this engine. It sounds much more, I guess, charismatic versus a 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine. 3-cylinders tend to sound like a half of a 6-cylinder because that's exactly what they are. So again, it surprisingly is responsive for the transmission, good mid-range grunt from the engine. I'm actually impressed and pleased with the powertrain given the price, the price category of this vehicle. Now, the Trax is the most affordable Chevy in the lineup, but it doesn't feel that way around the corners. So we have an independent front suspension, a twist beam, semi-independent in the rear. We have all-wheel disc brakes, or 4-wheel disc brakes at least, so you don't have to deal with drum brakes like you do in some of the lower trims of the Hyundai Venue. And the ride quality, even though we're driving the model with the bigger 19-inch wheels, it's firm, but it's not harsh. There is some road noise that creeps in, and the engine is actually not that loud. The Nissan Kicks has a much louder engine versus this car. This car's engine, again, sounds a little more sonorous, and it's less intrusive to me. What you just hear a lot of is road noise, and that's because of the big 19-inch wheels and on fat 245 weight tires. Those are actually really fat for this particular segment of vehicle. The tires are 20 millimeters fatter versus the 18-inch wheels on the lower trims of the Trax. So this is the unique trim level, of course. Sadly, it doesn't really improve much to the handling. The suspension still feels soft. The steering doesn't offer much in terms of feedback, but it is relatively quick, at least. It's a quick, wheel that responds to your inputs pretty quickly. But overall, the Trax, I think, is just a surprisingly nice car to drive. And even though no all-wheel drive, this vehicle doesn't really have that much power to overwhelm the front tires. Unless you're driving around in snowy climates, it's gonna put the power down just fine. Only when you're like really pushing it can you feel that 162 foot-pounds of torque that's overwhelming the front tires. But again, I'm actually not that upset that the Trax doesn't offer all-wheel drive. If you want all-wheel drive, the Trailblazer offers that for a little bit more. It also offers a little bit more power, although surprisingly, the Trax, I think, is the better-looking vehicle, and it's also the larger vehicle versus the Trailblazer. So that's something super interesting. But let's try another run here, see if we can get a consistent 8.9. We'll just floor it this time. Right around 3,000 is when the turbo kicks in, and it actually feels pretty peppy. 8.74 seconds there, so we'll take that as our best time. Again, it's not gonna win very many drag races, but it's gonna be powerful enough, it's gonna be peppy, it's gonna be adequate for most people. And I think that the powertrain in this car is a winner. I'm actually really surprised. I was surprised when I first drove this vehicle in North Carolina 2 years ago, and spending a full week with it really kind of just makes me realize no wonder this is one of the best-selling vehicles, or it is the best-selling vehicle in the segment. This vehicle, the way it accelerates, the way it drives, feels like a more expensive car, which is nice. Now, in terms of the seat comfort, these seats don't do much in terms of lateral bolstering for an RS trim with the RS badge. They are flat, but they are at least nicely padded. On longer trips, I actually was relatively pleased with the seats. They just don't hold you in place during aggressive cornering. Plus the steering that's so light and numb doesn't really add to that, feeling of confidence. It feels competent. It just doesn't feel like it's a car that, begs you to push it harder on your favorite back road. But at least visibility out of the Trax is pretty good. I can see out of the front and the side nicely, although the A-pillar here is on the thicker side. The view out of the back is fine. No digital camera rearview mirror, but my test car has the optional driver assistance package that includes blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, all that stuff for an extra $795. Is not bad, but some competitors make those features standard versus on the Chevy, you have to pay extra for it. And then in terms of the fuel efficiency, this vehicle is rated at 28 in the city and 32 on the highway. In my week's worth of testing, I averaged just over 29 miles to the gallon, just like around 29 and a half, which is fine. That's in mixed driving. On the highway, this car was doing around 31 mpg, which is just shy of the EPA's numbers. On a full tank, I was getting around 350 miles of range. That's on regular gas with its 13-gallon fuel tank. This thing is pretty, fuel miserly. It's not, a thirsty vehicle, although it would be nice if Chevy added like an electric motor, made this thing a hybrid. It would probably get, well over 40 mpg. But again, there's an upcoming Crosstrek hybrid. There's the Corolla Cross hybrid if you need more fuel efficiency, although those vehicles are going to be significantly more expensive. But overall, I like the Trax. I never cared for the first generation. The Buick Envista I also really liked as well. I think the Buick is the better looking vehicle, but it is a good deal more expensive, between $3,000 to $4,000 more expensive. But to be honest, I just wasn't expecting to like this car as much as I did. I mean, is it perfect? No. Does it have some faults? Yes, but for the price, for the money, I think Chevy has truly knocked this thing out of the park, and it's no wonder to me why this thing did over 200,000 units last year. It was, again, the best-selling vehicle in the subcompact SUV segment, outsold even the Subaru Crosstrek. So if you don't need all-wheel drive, you just want something that's stylish, that's comfortable, that's roomy, that's fuel efficient, that has decent tech, and it doesn't break the bank even at the top end, you should definitely put this new Trax at the very top of your list. Now, last year here in America, Chevrolet actually did a little over 200,000 units for 2024, making this car the best-selling subcompact SUV in the States. It actually outsold even the Subaru Crosstrek and Honda HR-V by tens of thousands of units, and it was the best sales year ever for the Trax. The company has essentially doubled their sales, so clearly they did something extremely right with this all-new second generation. And after spending a full week with this fully loaded 2RS trim, I'm happy to report that it's definitely a big surprise. Just Just like the Buick Envista, on which it shares a platform, this vehicle feels a lot more expensive than its price would suggest. It looks a lot better. It has a comfortable interior with tons of space. It has decent tech. The software in this car is probably my least favorite aspect. It really feels like a dumbed down version of what we get in some of the bigger, more expensive GM vehicles. The powertrain is also an unexpected surprise. 0 to 60 in 8.7 seconds at my best time was actually a pretty decent showing. I don't even hate the fact that this car doesn't offer all-wheel drive. It doesn't need it because it doesn't have that much power to kind of contend with. Again, if you want all-wheel drive, Chevy will happily sell you a Trailblazer. Could they offer all-wheel drive in this vehicle? Sure, and just discontinue the Trailblazer. I kind of think that could be, an option as well. Although between this and the Trailblazer, the company does around 300,000 units total. So again, this is a very, good selling vehicle, amazing selling vehicle for Chevrolet in general. The back seat's also spacious. The cargo area is better versus the Envista. And overall, even though this is not a sporty vehicle or a fast vehicle, it offers plenty of things to like about this car considering the price tag, and that's precisely why it does so well in the segment. Because if you want to get your hands on the new Trax, base price for this vehicle for the LS trim level, again with front wheel drive and that turbo engine, comes in at around $20,500. That's right, $20,500 for a brand new car. That is kind of unheard of in today's marketplace. The only thing that's cheaper really is the Hyundai Venue, which is around $300 cheaper. Definitely not as nice of a car. Most of you are probably going to want to step it up to the LT trim for an extra $2,000. That'll give you the 11-inch display in the center and the 8-inch digital instrument cluster, along with some alloy wheels, a little bit nicer features. That trim's gonna start at $22,500. This trim here, the 2RS, is actually only $2,000 more on top of that, so $24,500. My test car, of course, has two options. That's the sunroof package, which includes a wireless charger for $895, and the driver assistance package for $795, which includes adaptive cruise control. With destination charge, all in, my test car here comes to just over $27,000. That's right, fully loaded here, with a heated steering wheel and heated seats for $27,000 is just unheard of. Now keep in mind, the sister vehicle, the Envista, will cost you around $3,000 to $4,000 more. The last Envista Avenir I tested was just under $31,000. So there's a lot of value in here. You could also look at a new Nissan Kicks for about $30,000 if you guys look at an SR with front wheel drive, which does offer a couple of extra features like a pano sunroof and a premium Bose stereo, which you can't get on this car. But again, that's $3,000 more. And if you're on a budget, $27,000 versus $30,000 is going to make a pretty big difference. So overall, I think Chevy has basically hit it out of the park with the all-new Trax. There are very little detractors that I can think of. I mean, other than the fact that it's, still feels like a cheap car in certain places within the interior materials. But again, for a brand new car with this amount of equipment and this, amount of features, and for a decent driving vehicle, there is very little cars out there that can match what the Chevy Trax offers, which is why it's one of my favorite new subcompact SUVs that you can buy brand new today in 2025. Well, with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2025 Chevrolet Trax. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.